welcome again to the Complete Agent Podcast. I'm James Kendall, and I'm joined by Ian Story and David Warburton, where each week we aim to entertain and educate our industry, and I can't speak every week. Lads, how has your week been? Hopefully you can speak.
This is going to be a thoroughly entertaining podcast, I can tell you that now.
Entertaining. Live from Dubai.
Well, Ian, I'm going to let you go first, mate, because you're in a different part of the world again.
Yes, we're on holiday for Easter, coming live from the UAE, which is rather lovely. It's work hard, play hard, is my motto, chaps. So, well, my week was only actually 1.5 days because I was in the office on Monday and we came on holiday Tuesday afternoon. However, it's been probably the best week of my career, I would say, chaps. So,
Yeah,
we sold our first ever £2 million plus house on Monday. Which has been a rocky road because it's in Bowden, South Manchester. So you get a lot of people with a lot of money that they haven't necessarily got their own back. It was an absolute nightmare with buyers not turning up and stuff. But we have agreed to sale on it at 2.3 cash buyer. Can you believe?
Yeah, nice.
I'm sure there's a lot of cash at that level. So the money, the A&L checks are going to be thorough.
Yeah.
And then we sold, as of yesterday, Phil took an offer on when we put on $1 million. So we sold £3 million houses on top of that. Plus, Phil's listing really, really well. So, yeah, really good week. Obviously, I'm on holiday, but it is a really good week, chaps. Yeah. How about you, David?
What about Dean Stories?
Yeah, well done, guys. Yeah, do you know what? It's been a really good week. In fact, March has been my best month so far of the quarter. It's been a really good finish to the quarter. And what is still nice is that in the last week, I've had 3 calls for valuations from our letters.
Yes.
And that is, I'm going to one tonight. I've got one booked in for next week. And I went to one just the other night, and all of them had got the letter from December. So it feels like a pitch on the pod, and it almost is, to be fair. But it just makes me so happy when we get them direct from the letters. Of course, it's always part of your wider marketing mix, but obviously we're about to drop the new quarter 1 letter for this year. And I'm excited to see what that will bring, because the last one obviously has been really good. But yeah, it's been a fabulous month, really. One thing that I did want to sort of make a point of on the pod was a really good valuation that I went to yesterday, and it was almost one that wasn't anything. And I think it's something that we should all really consider doing regularly, and it's all down about buyers. So we had a buyer inquiry on the website, and she'd actually seen the property that we're marketing. It's an off-market property, so it's not on Rightmove. And she'd seen it. It's on for 2.75 million, and she'd seen that, and she said, "I've got a budget between 2 and 3 million. Just interested to hear more about this." And we messaged her back, and she'd come back to us, and then I tried to ring her, and she'd missed me, and it was one of those that could have easily fizzled out. But we stayed persistent, managed to speak, and it turned out that this property at 2.75 million wasn't for her. It wasn't going to be right for her. We established that on the phone. But rather than obviously just hanging up, I said to her, "Do you want me to come and have a chat with you about doing maybe a buyer campaign where we can try and help you find something? Because you're obviously struggling. We do a lot of things direct mail, and we offer a sourcing service. So can I come and have a chat with you at your home?" And she said, "Yeah, definitely." Now, she's got a £1 million house to sell. She needs to sell that in order to buy. Well, she doesn't actually, but depending on what she buys. And this is obviously what all came out in the meeting. So I went to that meeting yesterday. I met her and her husband. She is a very successful she's got a very successful bridging loan company. And her fella is a construction lawyer. So great jobs. They've got very, very healthy budgets. And I came away with that. I came away from that as their buying agent at 1.5%, and I'm selling their house at 1.5%. So they've got £1 million house, and they're going to be buying between £2 and £3 million. So it's obviously very early days, but if we manage to pull that off, you are talking between 40 and 50 grand on that. Not only that, they gave me 2 leads for 2 other properties that are just brilliant. So I guess the message I'm trying to give is we've said it before on previous pods, but there's so much gold in your database, and buyers are really, really great sources of income for you. It doesn't have to be a direct house sale all the time, and you really should spend time with your buyers to see what the plans are. If they can't find anything, help them find something. JK dropped a buyer letter in the group. We don't know how many people have used it. And that's probably one of the more basic ones that we use. You can do so much for your clients and get loads out of it. And that's just one great example. And that's only one great example. There's been loads. But that's obviously been a great success story this week for me. And like I said, very early days. But the other thing I forgot to mention there, they're paying £1,000 to go market ready next month.
Nice.
So we're going to get their house ready next month. And hopefully we'll be getting that on the market probably in the next 2 or 3 months. So again,
James, is that grand like an upfront marketing fee?
Yes.
And
yeah.
why have you done a grand? Because that's more than you've been doing, isn't it?
Yeah. I just to be honest, I just said £1,000.
Well, covers your buyer letter costs as well, doesn't it? I think that's probably part of it.
Yeah, there's that in there as well.
Okay,
and I've done a reduced fee, so I'm doing a 1.5% selling fee, but I'm doing 1.5% buying fee as well.
Dave, can I just say something? I love how you just said I'm doing them a reduced fee of 1.5%. That is a brilliant place to be in your career, mate. There's a lot of people that love to be charging 1.5 average, and you're reducing it for that. So well done.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, so we're doing that, and it was just a very, very good lead, that, and it could have easily just slipped away. And one thing I would say to people as well is this is an educating process. So even though these have got very, very high level jobs and are very wealthy people, they didn't know that the best thing to do was either go on the market or be market ready.
Yeah,
they're still looking for their perfect home that never turns up, and they're on this merry-go-round. And again, when we got into the detail, they want to be moved by December this year if they can. And I'm super confident about being able to find them something, because how many people do we meet? I've got loads of slow burners, and I actually went to a house last week that I think would be perfect for them, but that guy isn't quite ready either. So sometimes it's just about building chains at this end of the market, but the rewards are obviously so much bigger. So yeah, I just wanted to share that story on the pod before we go into it, because I think it's really encouraging for anybody listening who's got a good database of clients, but also just get your team. If it's not you, obviously that can't always be you, but get the team into having great conversations and building rapport with these buyers, understanding the circumstances, and maybe book calls in your diary. So if there is an interesting client that they've spoken to who's looking to find and they're struggling, book them in your diary, but go out and see them in their own home, because it might not just be them. That conversation might lead to something else. So yeah, just wanted to share that this morning, guys.
Cool. And then, so in terms of, we've got instructions coming out. I've got it out of my ears and all sorts at the moment. I picked up, I think 3 in one day randomly, yesterday or the day before, a brand new build, at 525. Interesting conversation there. They've been on the market. They're a kind of small to mid-sized builder, and they've been on the market for a little while. Really poor marketing. Came across them with just talking about buyers, actually. Interesting you say that, Dave. They're involved with somebody else who's buying a house through us, and they came to one of the off-market opportunities that I presented before, and got chatting, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so-and-so." And I was like, "Oh," I knew who he was. And I said, "Oh, really good to meet." I said, "I noticed you've got a couple left on your site up the road. What's happening with them?" And he said, "Oh, not much is happening." And I said, "Well, look, have you thought about the marketing, a bit more proactive?" And he said, yeah, we have. I said, "Well, look, let me take your number." I said, and I'll give you a call tomorrow, and we'll discuss. He was, "All right, fair enough." Obviously, true to my word, I called him the next day, and he said, because I love how proactive you are. Meet me and my business partner on site, and we'll have a chat. So I went and met them on site, and we had a conversation around fee. They said, "Oh, we're only paying 1%," and I said, "Well, you're getting 1% service at the moment, because you're getting 1% marketing. Your floor plan's got no measurements on it. your photos have been taken on an iPhone. I said, it's no wonder. I said, you built a quality product. Their attention to detail is fantastic. I said, you need to align with someone that is like you with attention to detail. So I said, look, I'll do the first one for you at 1.5%. I said, but the next, everyone after that will be 2%. And they said, well, we're not, 1.5% is a lot more than we're used to paying. I said, but, I broke it down. At the end of the day, on average, I mean, look, we're actually achieving this month 103% of asking. But I said, look, on average, for last year, we achieved 99%. I said, the average agent is achieving 97%. So I said, even if you pay me 1.5% on this house here at 525, based on those numbers, you're going to be $7,000 better off. So it's a no-brainer. And they said, oh, all right, fair enough. You've delivered on everything so far. Anyway, went out there with photography yesterday, took photos, video, got it live, and they were blown away. They just said, it's way more professional and it looks quality compared to everything they've used before. And it just speaks volumes. The quality of what else is out there is so low that when you actually do a decent job, you just, again, obliterate the competition. So another thing that came up, again, loads and loads of instructions this week. I think we've listed and signed up the best part of 3 million quid's worth of instructions this week. And that varies from kind of 375 all the way up to kind of 650. Haven't done too much at the top end. Got a market ready instruction that I did last year, kind of summer, that was ready. They weren't ready to go on, but I convinced them to do the photos and the video, and we kind of had it off market. Had a good chat with them yesterday. I think it's 1.25, maybe 1.3. They'd had valuations of 1.5. So what we're going to do now is get a couple of people through the door now they're ready before it goes to market, and just give us a bit of a litmus test as to what the price is. I think I'm right, and the data suggests that I am right based on the square footage and pound per square foot. But it might be one of those ones that we give it a go. We try plan A and then we go to plan B. But that's a really nice house in a beautiful village, lovely plot, and a great kind of hallmark instruction. Just before we jump into this week's topic, something that did happen to Rich this week, I just wanted to discuss briefly. And this is what really, it's classic agency. We were recommended to this lady that's on the market with another agent at the moment. Now, mid-range, came on at 550. And hasn't gone anywhere, hasn't had any viewings in 6 weeks, thinks they need to change agent. So Rich went out to see them, and Rich rang me up and said, it's on at 550, well, it's on at 550, now 525. He goes, I've looked at the data in the area for what's selling, and it's, I think, just off the top of my head, I think it was like £350 a foot is what things are achieving net in that area. And it's a modern house. There's no unique aspect about it. It's a nice house, lovely, well presented, lovely kitchen, etc. But it's just overpriced. So Rich went out, presented the data, and said, "Look, this is the data suggests that and the market suggests that that your house is 475, not 525, which is probably why you haven't had any interest." And she was a bit deflated. And he went through, the whats and the whys, and why you need to be at the right sort of level. We offers over 475 might be a good place to start. We could try 500 to satisfy curiosity, but it's going to be a waste of time. You need to go offers over 475, get on a price band. Anyway, she took it all on board, and then she goes, "I've got another agent coming out," and lo and behold, the other agent said, "Oh, well, we'll do it for 1%, and we can sell it at 525." And Rich was like, he's so frustrated. And I was like, "Rich, honestly, mate, don't worry about it.
There you go.
Let it go.
Pick him up when he goes down.
And it will come back." Because the thing is, what's the point? The thing is, at the end of the day, why would we spend £700-800 on marketing a house that's overpriced, that's going to sit there with a seller that can't see the wood for the trees? It's frustrating. Anyway.
No, I agree, mate. I agree. I lost one myself this week. Really, really nice house. It's only 2,300 square feet. Pound per square foot average around my village is 400. So, 1.1, 1.2. But then, it's a special house back onto a golf course. So it's probably like 1.25, so 1.3. Anyway, Savills came in, undercut me on fee, said more than 1.3. So she's saying, well, Savills have said that. So, you just can't win them all the time. Message to Rich, you've got to walk away, mate, and concentrate on something, someone who does want you. JK, just picking up on something you said there that I think's important is, hasn't Simon Gates or Luke Sinclair or someone got a little app that you can put your numbers into and it shows you how much more
Luke
you're going
has,
to get?
It's called what's it called? Companion, I think, or something.
Okay,
You put
we should
Knightsbridge
find that out.
Companion in. Yeah.
I did that. I put one on the market last week at 1.4, and I had really good interest in it. And my point was that I was sat with them, and they were talking about another agent who obviously was quoting a lower fee. And I didn't actually have the app, but I calculated it based on what was achieved as an average percentage of the asking price. And it showed how, and I think it really resonated with this guy who's like high level professional. He really got it. So that app is something you should all be using.
Shout out to Luke Sinclair as well, because I'm actually I didn't mention to you guys actually before we kicked off live, but he's got a new venture that we're working with. I've literally signed up last night. I won't say too much at the moment, but it's all to do with WhatsApp and integrating WhatsApp with Street. And we have just set it all up, and honestly, it's incredible. Like, if you're using WhatsApp groups for sellers, literally now we've got it set up. It literally went through it last night. So when a house gets clicked into instructed on Street, this WhatsApp system automatically sets up a WhatsApp group with all of the members of the team, sends them an intro message, and adds all of the vendors in there as well.
Yeah,
and it's brilliant. Like hands off, bosh, done. And then the same with buyers. When a sale's agreed, as soon as Street says offer accepted, it creates a WhatsApp group, adds the buyers in, sends them a message, welcome them into the group.
Brilliant.
Bosh.
Can you talk to it from Street yet? Can you talk to the group from Street?
No.
That's what
I don't see why you would want to.
Well, because it's better than pick up your phone. Just do it, and it logs it all in Street then, doesn't it? It's so WhatsApp.
I don't know. I think I think you can actually do
voice
it.
Notes. You're talking about voice notes, Ian, or
anything. I just think if it all kept it in Street, you could see everything. Got your email communication, file notes, viewings, feedback.
I think there's a way you actually can. I think I'm saying that Luke has actually got something set up where with 3CX, which is without going really technical here, but the VoIP system that he's got, and what it does is it automatically using AI transcribes all the calls that happen through the system in the office. And adds them into Street and summarizes them. So there's some really exciting tech coming soon. And so if anyone's listening to this, you are interested, reach out to him. He's a top guy, and he will give you all of the information and ask for nothing in return, because he is just a top guy. So we are obviously gone.
Sorry, just a couple of things there I picked up on. One, I really like what you said before, JK, to your client. You're getting 1% service. I think it's a nice line, that. So I really like that. And with regards to Rich as well, I've had one recently. In fact, I talked about it on the pod about 4 weeks ago, where I think I said I'd spent sort of 2 Friday evenings with this guy, 45 minutes on the phone.
Lucky guy.
45 minutes on the phone.
No.
She listens. So 45 minutes on the phone one Friday, and then the following Friday I actually went to the house and saw the house and everything. We had like 90 minutes. I thought, right, great, he's going to come on the market. And then on the Monday, he'd taken all my advice and reduced it, changed his photographs with his existing agent. We're now 4 weeks down the line, and he rang me and said, can we just put it on the market with you?
Yeah,
so it's happening
it's
now.
The middleman, and just get the real person involved.
Yeah, so I think sometimes you just got to let them go. That was the only thing. And then the third thing I just wanted to mention was, JK, you didn't tell us that you'd gone to another group. You've cheated on us, and we're not happy about it.
Another group? What other group?
Yeah, well, you've obviously getting into the group with Luke Sinclair. You've got other things going on. We've got our podcast. You've not cleared it with us. I'm not happy about it. I can tell Ian isn't either. So.
Soz hun. Right, so we're going to talk about sales progression this week as part of the mini-series. I think this is probably the last part of the mini-series before we start maybe getting more guests on today. We have got a guest on today.
Yes.
Ian, would you like to introduce today's wonderful guest?
I would love to. So today's wonderful guest is a lady called Michelle Smith. Michelle and I have been friends for not far off 20 years. We're both from sort of sunny Blackpool or the surrounding areas.
Yeah,
we
sorry
hang
about
out
that.
together a lot in our sort of younger years. Michelle has over 20 years, I think, experience in the industry, and So it started at the bottom, worked our way up, has sort of run agency chains and lots of good experience in the industry. Also got great experience in coaching as well. And Michelle, for the last couple of years, has been doing all of our sales progression at Stories. We've always done that on a sort of contracting basis. So Michelle's basically self-employed, and we paid Michelle a retainer each month for all of our sales progression. She's absolutely brilliant at it, best in the industry, and has been an instrumental part in our growth. Now, Michelle is moving on to other things this year. She's going to stay part of the team with the coaching element. And therefore, we thought that for our sales progression mini-series episode, there was no one better to get on to join in the conversation. So that's a bit of a summary of Michelle. Michelle's here now. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, it's so good to be here.
It's great to have you here. I know that we all spoke the other night on a Zoom, didn't we? So you've met the lads previously.
Yeah.
And Michelle will just join in on the conversation, really. So I suppose let's kick it off then. So as we all know, for those that don't, where have you been? The sales progression is the period between agreeing a sale, between the memo going and between exchanging contracts. And you could easily say that that's over 50% of the job in many cases, because it can be really, really challenging. And sales progression done well can really stop a sale from falling through. So Michelle, I'll just throw it to you. Maybe you could give us a brief sort of outline initially of, what you do at the start of the sales progression process to get it moving along.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, like when I think about sales progression from kind of previous estate agency, I think it's one of those things that when it's not done well, it absolutely is the stumbling block for your business and growing your business and getting your kind of reputation and getting people to buy into you. Because ultimately sales progression is the last touch point for a client. So if that isn't done well, it's like when you go to a restaurant or if you have any type of service, you may start off well, you may get your sale, but if they don't treat you well in the aftercare, you walk away from that transaction just with a, foul taste in your mouth, really. So with the sales progression, I look at this as such an essential part of the business. And rather than it just being managing the transaction from sale agreed to completion, you are business generating as well as doing that job. And what I mean by that is, the amount of opportunities that a sales progressor has to build a relationship, it is probably higher than any other person that's in that estate agency at the time, because it's such a personal relationship. So when it's done right, you really do have their trust, in your hands. You've built such a solid relationship, which then goes on to kind of get repeat business, get referrals, and get them speaking really positively about you. But taking it down to the kind of granular and how that's done, for me, it always starts with over communicating. Whenever I receive a memorandum of sale, the first thing I do is have an introductory call with each of them. And that really outlines who I am, what I'm going to do for them in the process, what they're going to need. And it really opens up that channel of communication. And I literally say, if there's anything at all, anything with the paperwork that you're completing that you're going to get that you're not sure of, I'm here. Whether you're the buyer or the seller, you will get exactly the same amount of service from me. And it's often at that point where, if there is anything that's bothering them, you've built that trust and they'll start to talk to you, they'll start to open up. It's amazing the things that they tell you at this point that maybe haven't come up, with the guys in the office who are doing a brilliant job, but it's very fast-paced, isn't it, when you're booking the viewings and, negotiating and all that, great stuff, which is so exciting. This is the bit of the sale where really it's just after the pinnacle. So we've got to the peak, the buzzing, they've got the sale agreed, and they take a deep breath. And it's like, frigging hell, it's got real. I've now got to do the work and it's over to me. So you're getting them at a really I suppose vulnerable's the wrong word, but a really sensitive time in the whole of the process. Unless you set that up right, they're not going to have that trust in you. And it's so important for what's going to come, because we all know it's no rose garden, is it?
So can I just jump in and ask a couple of questions then? Because
Yeah.
I've got a few ways that I do them, but just to kind of open up dialogue for people that are listening. So what would you say, like right at the beginning of the process, for anyone listening to this, what would you say? Obviously, an introductory call is fantastic, and I think that's paramount. Anyone that is not doing sales progression or doesn't have a dedicated sales progressor, whoever is doing the progression should definitely be communicating with people in the beginning and introducing themselves so they know who that point of contact is. Do you set the expectation in terms of how many times you're going to speak to them? Like what sort of level of detail do you get in the beginning, and then what sort of difference does that make, as things progress? What would you if you had to give tips to agents listening that wanted to be better at sales progression, what would you give them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So first of all, I ask them questions. So I need to understand their level of knowledge and, have they gone through this process before? Do they need walking through the actual process of selling the house and what their role and their jobs are to do? And in terms of our contact, I mean, as a minimum, I speak to them every week. However, it's always more than that. I will find opportunities just to communicate, whether it's in a WhatsApp group, whether it's picking up the phone, whatever it may be. But I mean, as a minimum, I'll speak to them weekly. But in my view is it actually needs to be more than that. Even if that's just a very small touch point, it's still a touch point.
You on
the other thing? Sorry, mate, go on.
JK, sorry, mate. I was just going to say that Michelle is on our WhatsApp groups as well. So
yes,
Michelle gets added to the WhatsApp group when the sales agree. So she's not there for all the crap that goes on before it. But when the sales agree, she's added, buyer and seller, obviously. And so what Michelle means there is when she's, if she can just send them a WhatsApp basically. She also add an extra touch point. It doesn't have to be a call. You can just send a WhatsApp, which, as we all know, as we spoke about before on the podcast, is a great little quick and easy win, but make the client knows you're there.
So Sandra is our dedicated sales progression. She would have loved to have been on here as well, but we should have been talking sales progression all day. She loves it. We do something slightly different. I understand why you add Michelle in once the sales agreed. We actually add Sandra because Sandra's title is actually sales progression and administration manager. So she kind of dips in a bit of both. She's 90% sales progression, but does help with the odd admin part as well. But she likes to be part of the groups early, even if she's not interacting, just to get a flavour of the personalities that she's going to be dealing with, like with the sellers. And she said that she can tell a lot by the interactions that kind of come in the group in the beginning, which really kind of help her long term with kind of setting the tone. One of the things that I think really important, and one of the things that we've really drilled down on, is the level of detail when you're putting a deal together in the beginning. Especially, if we're more kind of mid to high end, sometimes you're involved in chains with first time buyers lower down the chain, and the attention to detail from other agents isn't always there. And having things like, the mortgage advisor's details throughout the chain, having all of the solicitor's details throughout the chain, is there things like a lifetime ISA involved, help to buy ISA, those kind of things. Is somebody renting? Is it subject to a probate? Again, it all comes down to there's so many different things that underlie really good estate agency, which are things like consistency, but attention to detail. Not just in the marketing, but even as far as sales progression. When you're putting a chain together, having access to all of the information up and down the chain, because you'll know, Michelle, yourself, when you've got a deal going through, and if you've got a weak agent in the chain, I'm just going to say it, if you've got a weak agent in the chain that hasn't got dedicated sales progression or isn't doing sales progression, now shout out to another Michelle Gallagher, really great agent in the north of the country. She recently bought a house, and as an agent as well, and for herself personally. And I can remember being in a WhatsApp group with her when she was talking about it, and she didn't hear from the agent once throughout the transaction until she exchanged, and she was having to deal with the other side's solicitor direct. There was no communication. And again, it's that classic, isn't it? You know, Dave's 3 things he loves to say to a client, and I've started to say it myself. We can control the exposure, the quality of the marketing, and the communication. And the communication is where a lot of agents fall down, full stop. So where would you say, in terms of, just to throw the ball back to you, Michelle, because obviously you're our star guest today, where would you say a lot of agents fall down, and what could they do better?
Just want to go back to what you said, James, because I absolutely agree. And to me, there's 2 tracks in sales progression. There's process and there's relationship. So what you're talking about is getting a really nailed on process in terms of getting all the detail that you need and having your own internal processes that make sure you manage the sale through its natural progression. And the second track, and they've got to go side by side, otherwise but they will fall down, is the relationship. And I like what you said about what Sandra does. I look at that a little bit differently, and everybody will have their own view on this. I like to go in and make my own mind up and adapt to whatever it is that the client needs and their quirks. Because I think sometimes someone's experience of one client can be entirely different to another person's experience. So I try not to get involved before. Obviously, if there's anything pertinent that I need to know, it'll be given to you, the handover. But I've had some absolutely sublime relationships with clients that maybe haven't been the easiest for other people. So I want to go into it with a really fresh, open mind, and I'm just going to work with that client in whichever way I need to work with them to get the best results.
I also think, briefly, chaps, that obviously I think it's different because Sandra's in the office, isn't she, James?
Yes.
Does Sandra book viewings as well and get involved in that
sometimes
side?
Yeah, there's overflow.
So I think that's probably why there's a bit more of a gap there, because Michelle is out. Michelle works from home, not from the office.
And she's dedicated to sales progression.
Basically Michelle is outsourced. We've just got lucky that Michelle's been so brilliantly involved as well, really. But what we are going to do, we're going to recruit someone to have them in-house, James, because I think we've got lucky basically that Michelle's been so good. But prior to Michelle, we had two or three different sales progression companies, and it was an absolute nightmare.
Hashtag me too.
Yeah, really damaged reputation. So we're going to bring it in, which I know there's pros and cons for, but I think ultimately it'll benefit us more because we won't have Michelle to rely on, and I know, because I know Michelle personally, I can trust and rely that she'll do the right thing. I can't do that with an outsourced sales project company. So by bringing it in, we're going to have more control over it and be able to apply, give training and that sort of thing. So I think that our new version, Michelle, will do a bit of this land stuff as well. So therefore, we'll probably be on the WhatsApp earlier on.
It's really the other thing as well.
It's so important, this part of the process, because I think we mentioned it last week. One of the first experiences that the people will have is obviously when they pick up the phone to book a viewing, but then when they meet your viewing representative. So if you're weak in that area, and then right at the end, they're going to spend probably 12, 16, 20 weeks with Michelle or your sales progressor. If Michelle's crap or not very personable or didn't do what she just said, Michelle, which I think is a great tip, I think you do have to close yourself off from the experience that everybody else in the office has potentially had. If you don't do that, then that potentially might feed through. And the last experience that they'll have of your brand is a poor one as well. So, if you look at all our reviews across the brands, you'll very rarely see my name mentioned. Usually Pauline and Kate were absolutely fantastic throughout this process. And I actually always say to clients when I go to see them, I like to make a point that we've got a very, very good support team. I always say to them that at the end of this process, you'll forget I even existed. You'll forget all of this because you'll build a great relationship with Kate and Pauline in the office, who are going to take you through this process, and you'll build a very close, firm, and a great bond with them. And of course, when the vendors come in with the big boxes of chocolates and bottles of wine, they literally walk straight past me and they give it to the girls, and rightly so. And rightly so, because that is the hardest part, getting you from the point where you take an offer through to completion. It is the hardest part. You need somebody that's very, very well organised, very good communicator, empathetic, calm. I've been told recently that I need to start counting to 10 before I pass comment, which I do quite frequently. and I've started trying to do that. And you know, you do need someone. One of the things that I get from Pauline and Kate in my office who do the sales progression is they're just so calm and empathetic. They're brilliant with the clients, and I love it. And you know, sometimes it's difficult. That's a difficult job, and I'm sure you can relate to that, Michelle.
Do you know what? You're absolutely right. And then if my husband was listening to this, he'd be like, "Who is this person?"
Yeah.
I know. He's like, "Christ, you've used it all up at work." But yeah, it is. You know, it's managing the unmanageable. It's dealing with highly emotional states, and to be able to do that and navigate it in a way that everybody still feels that they're getting what they want when they want opposing things often, it is definitely a skill. And there are some great sales negotiators that do sales progression and dedicated sales progressors that I come across, but that's the minority. I've got to say, I've had buyers from 3 down in a chain find my name and number and call me directly, because they are literally getting nothing from their agent and they're just absolutely frustrated. That has happened, you know, definitely on more than one occasion. So I really do think that a lot of agents are missing this. And what tends to happen is, if you get a good sales progressor, they end up doing the progression for the whole of the chain.
Yeah.
In one way or another.
That happens all the time.
Yeah, you do, because you know the value in it, and you know that basically, if not, the chain is possibly going to collapse. Now, some people may look at that and think, God, that's a nightmare, because, you know, they hand me a chain, they've got 6 people in it, I've got 6 sales. So in terms of my time and energy, that's a lot. But that's a mindset thing, because I don't look at it like that. I think this is an opportunity to knock the socks off these clients, because I'm going to update them more than their agent's ever going to update them. And I'm just going to set ourselves apart even more. So there is a huge amount of mindset involved in sales progression, for sure. So process, you can teach anyone process, you know, A to Z. Follow these steps. This is how we're going to get you through the sale. Even when you can teach process, 50% won't follow it.
Yes.
Can I drop some tips in there? So I've got a few tips that I feel like are really going to add value to anyone listening to this podcast. So you're absolutely spot on what you said there, Michelle. Like, with, you know, effectively managing the chain. Now, we all know reviews are gold dust, and you can use those opportunities to forge those relationships. So just going through the chain, one of the things that I do think is really important, I do think is overlooked, it's something that Sandra does really well, and it does pay dividends moving forward. When a sale is complete or even exchanged, thanking everyone in the chain. So thanking all of the solicitors involved that you've had communication with, and even thanking the agents you've been involved in the chain as well. That stands you in good stead later on. Yeah. And we've had some really good reviews from other agents that have just literally randomly left 5-star reviews on us saying, was involved as an agent, involved in the chain with Sandra. Like, we got it through together, and Sandra, bless her, I left one on our behalf for the other agent where they've really helped, and it's just forging relationships. So thanking solicitors and agents, and we've just ordered a load of thank you cards as well, because Sandra wants to send out some thank you cards, and it's just forging, because we all know that unfortunately a lot of the solicitors have contempt for agents, you know, and they don't like agents, and there's a real breakdown between the two. Now, we're really lucky that the majority of our sales, and this is something that's crucial, that we are really, really lucky with. We have got 3 really good firms. 2 we use for pretty much most of our transactions, but 3 really good firms that we use for the majority of our transactions that our clients trust with. Our solicitors are available on WhatsApp to us and to the clients. They're super communicative. You know, they don't have the classic 1 hour between 1 and 2 for lunch. They'll respond sometimes, bless them, at 6, 7 o'clock at night. They're having a really good relationship with a local solicitor that you can work with your clients with, again, can pay you dividends moving forward. But also a couple of other really good tips. Now, obviously, you guys have got new developments near you, and I'm guessing it's probably the same countrywide. But where I am, a lot of the new build development sites that were built in the last 10 years are now all managed by freehold management companies. So like here, we've got the likes of First Port, Chamonix Estates, who are now First Port, Hegarty Management. New build developments can all have a management pack. And there's been sales that I've been involved in chains with that have fallen through with timescales because these freehold management packs that are required on these estates haven't been ordered. No one knows about them until 6, 8, 10 weeks down the process. So when a deal is put together, I mean, certainly when we put a deal together, because we sell quite a lot of mid-range kind of detached homes on new estates at 600,000-700,000. Again, Ian, you love a red row where you are, so I don't know if it's the same if on your estate. But, you know, freehold management pack, get that in the beginning. Speak to your clients, even on the valuation, and say to them, when the house is sold, you're going to need a freehold management pack.
Yeah,
because
great tip. That's a great tip, mate. You're right.
And that can save you. So here, just so everyone knows, here, First Port are huge where we are, and I'll say it out loud. Sue me if you want, but they are dreadful. Honestly, it takes 3 to 4 weeks sometimes for the management pack to get to the solicitor. But if you don't set the expectation with the client doesn't know what the freehold management pack is because it wasn't involved when they bought the home brand new. But set the expectation early, order that pack, early, and then you can save yourself 4 weeks in the process and potentially stop a deal from falling through.
That's such a good tip, James.
That's a great tip.
It is. It really is. I've just had one actually, where we had just ordered because, you know, she had an issue. She'd been marketed with a previous agent before, and it was the management company that the slow response that caused the ultimate breakdown of the chain. So that it is such a good tip, and one to take away. I love what you do about I love what you do about thanking the other agents and solicitors with a review. I often do it on a phone call, but I love the fact to do it on a review. What a great tip.
Yeah. It really gets some buy-in because, again, it stands you in good stead for the future. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I feel like, you know, obviously us four here, a lot of agents that we're connected with as well, there's a real kind of like a new era of collaboration going on. But there is still, I would say, 85%, maybe 90% of the industry that are in that old school mindset of it's us against them. You know, there's enough like business to go around for everyone. Just be better and work together, and we can all help our own clients respectively, you know, and having that relationship with other agents, be able to pick up the phone and go, have your clients ordered a management pack, you know, drop in contracts if contracts need to be dropped, like just helping each other out and getting everyone to where they need to be rather than, you know, throwing shade at one another. But yeah, I think it's building again, Sandra's responsible for the thanking part. I'm not going to take the credit for it. It's her idea, something that she's done and has eventually kind of stood her in good stead. She's notorious. I have had, you know, she's that good sometimes. I've had complaints about her from people that have been calling too much. But she's tenacious. At the end of the day, you'll be the same, Michelle. Like going through and asking for an update once a week from an agent that doesn't update their client throughout the whole process. Like we had one the other day where the agent rang up and said, hello, we were expecting an exchange today. Do you know what's happening? And that's literally the first time that we've ever heard from them throughout the chain. We've been dealing with their clients who've rang us directly for updates because they just said the agent is useless. They don't know what's going on.
Can I pick up on something? A couple of things, please. First thing is to say that this is just a side tip, really, but something that we're starting to do more. So Vicky in our team, who's a total ledge, isn't she, Michelle, is like a complete one-off, and she's in charge of like client happiness. So I toy with calling her that client happiness, obviously, but I thought it was a bit wanky, so we didn't talk about it a bit more. But that's what she is. So, for instance, this is how good the team are. Aidan the other day was running a couple of ID checks for me on a new client that's coming on. He noticed that his client's 50th birthday was the weekend after next. He sent Vicky an email, CC'd me, Vic, can you get a 50th birthday card and send it to the client? And they do that sort of thing all the time. Which I think that's just absolutely brilliant. The second thing before I go back to Michelle was I love it with certain solicitors when I put my invoice in. because I think
Yeah.
you've been an absolute dickhead, and I love banging in a 2% invoice on £1 million house. Because when they transfer the money, they must be like, yeah, mate. Pay it. And then I just want to pass him on to Michelle. So obviously we're talking about sales progression, and this mini-series so far has been like a step-by-step guide of how to be really exceptional on stage. It's kind of wondered, Michelle, if you could just talk us through the steps that you go through, like when you're getting started with the sale. So, what do you make sure the buyer is doing? What do you make sure the seller is doing? Like, how often do you monitor that, etc.?
Yeah. So the start is kind of intensive because I want to make sure, firstly, that they know what they're doing in terms of the paperwork that they're going to get and what's expected of them in terms of completing it. If they're getting a mortgage, have they got that appointment booked in? And I'm obviously making a note of all of this in the diary to forward chase. And also, while they're out with the building survey, do they need any local recommendations, or do they know what they're doing? And then I'll outline our expectations to them. So what I need them to do is I need a survey access call. I need confirmation from their solicitor that searches have been paid for. And at that point, we'll mark the property under offer. That is just the very basic kind of start off for the buyer. For the seller, depending whether they're buying on or not, obviously if they're buying on, I'm saying exactly the same thing to the buyer, but I'm also setting their expectations in terms of what is needed from them. And they're quite nervous at that point, that they want to make sure that the buyer is still excited, 100% on board. And I share a bit of information here, and I think this is a really key tip. So through kind of the conversations that I have with the buyer, I find out more about the family, what they actually really love about the house, because they don't give that away in a negotiation. Why would you? So I want to know more about what is it about this particular house that they love? Why are they excited to move? What are the kids doing if they've got kids? So I want to build up the picture of the buyers with the sellers, because my job is to make sure, although they'll never meet, they have a super relationship and they really like each other, because it's key. It's absolutely key. So, that is what we start off with in terms of, this is your buyer, this is the picture, this is why they love your home. And to the buyer as well, the seller is amenable, the seller is flexible, and this is why the seller has loved living here. All of those reasons, it's all about the relationship building at those very first start. So we're ticking the boxes on process. We're making sure they're geared up, they're going to be quick, they're going to be swift. We're also starting the relationship building hand in hand.
Can I just pick up something on you just said there as well, which I think a really good sales progressor does something really well, is sometimes, obviously emotions can run high through buying and selling. And sometimes, we have in the past saved sales by stopping. Obviously, buyer and sellers should never communicate anyway. But some of the communication sometimes that comes in through WhatsApp, where people get frustrated and they will say things like, they can have X, Y, and Z for ABC, but if they don't take that, then they can stick it up their arse because we're not going to move. We're not going to move house. And just taking that information and transferring it to the buyer and saying, yes, they'll sell the thing for you for that's it, but they've been very clear that that's it. There's no more. Like, you don't need to add in the rest of the, and I think that's something that, again, I know Sandra will end up listening to this because it's about sales progression. So hello, Sandra. Thanks for listening. But one thing that she is really good at is she's very empathetic in terms of, like, again, I'll give you an anecdote in a second, but the taking sometimes information that's passed from buyer to seller and presenting that in a positive way to either side. Like, you can just, like you said, Michelle, you're keeping the dialogue and you're selling the buyer to the seller and the seller to the buyer continually throughout the process. And what I do think, what separates average from great in sales progression is empathy. We had a really difficult sale last year that nearly fell through. It was a 15 grand fee. And Sandra, bless her, she was going abroad. She was getting on the Eurostar. And this sale was about to exchange. I remember it. And and it was a divorce. And the couple were in their like late 60s, and it was all getting very tetchy towards the end. And the missus basically said, "Oh, I think I'm just going to stay put, and we'll do it again next year," and blah blah blah. And I remember Sandra saying, she basically put her arm around her on the phone call and just said, "Look, I'm in my 60s. I've been divorced. I've moved house. I've been through this process before, and I know that emotions are running high. You're about to exchange contracts. You're about to move on with your life. Just get it across the line." And she said to this lady, "Just do it, and then you'll look back on this moment in 6 months' time and think, I did the right thing. I moved on with my life, and that's that." And they're the kind of conversations that your 20-year-old negotiator couldn't have with somebody like that, and that's why a great sales progressor is worth their weight in gold.
And on that note, I think Ian's just started crying because
No, you know what I
This
was
time was
thinking?
on the Eurostar, and they didn't get on the Emirates to Abu Dhabi. Is
You
that
know,
right?
you know what I was thinking, Dave? I was thinking, I wonder if Sandra wants to move to Cheshire.
Yeah, well, he's started crying for two reasons. One, that was a lovely story, but two, Michelle's on her way.
Yeah.
I'm going to change
Well,
careers. I'm going to change
It's like
careers.
Fast and the Furious when Dominic Toretto and Paul Walker go side by side. And I see you again.
Dear me.
Yeah.
No, there's some great tips there. Great stuff.
But I think knowing information is crucial. I think that's the bottom line. If anyone's listening to this and wants to kind of distill and summarize what we've talked about, it's relationship building, and attention to detail. Always having those
Also,
details
James,
in the beginning.
sorry to interrupt, mate. I also think one thing that's very important is that you are frank and straight with people.
Yes.
Michelle, you're going to pick up on something there.
Yeah, I literally was just going to say that. So, whilst you've got a layer of empathy, you are a ball of empathy. I am quite tough and straight talking and assertive.
Oh, shit.
But I can.
The amount of times she's rung me and
That's
gone,
how I'm
right,
going to
Ian.
say you're such a good retainer, Ian. But that is really important. And when I always bang on about building trust, when I come in and I tell it them straight, when it needs to happen in certain sales with certain people, they know that I'm doing this with their very best intentions at heart.
Yes.
So I'm not doing it as the agent who's trying to get their fee. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. So whilst empathy is the bedrock of a fabulous sales progressor, being assertive, how to disagree without being disagreeable, how to find a point of agreement when there are polar opposites,
Yes.
are also essential skills.
Yes. Yeah, and it's that power play, isn't it? That you've got to be in control.
Mm.
You are. Yeah. It's like that throughout the relationship, though. Even as agents, from valuation to even when to the point where you're marketing the home and you're doing the sales part as the agent. Again, it's a whole nother podcast to talk about like the power dynamics and how it all works. But you've got to be the authority and the expert. And I think you're absolutely right, Michelle. That's got to carry all the way through, even to sales progression.
I think also when we talk, Michelle, sorry, when we talk about, being good enough to get the higher fee, being able to confidently charge 2% and working with the right clients who appreciate how you are and all of that we talk about, this also applies to sales progression. So the reason that Michelle comes across and it gets taken so well by a lot of these clients who are earning hundreds of thousands a year, these people, they are professional people. They appreciate that kind of professional, confident, frank, to and fro discussions. They're not paying you 2% to be a wallflower. They're paying you to give them the advice that they need to hear. And I think that's why it goes down so well. I'm not sure it goes down so well on a 100-grand terrace, that kind of conversation.
No, they don't care. Then it's transactional. Boils down to, are they a transactional client or are they a relational client? And the mid to high end are relational clients majority of the time. They value what you say. And just going back, again, another thing on sales progression, survey reports. Having a good agent and sales progressor on your side, like how many times I've helped my clients get reductions on other properties where reports have come in and the agent doesn't understand the report, and gas is marked for 3, electrics are marked for 3. Surveyor's report basically says this house may fall down in the next 300 years potentially. and knowing how to interpret a surveyor's report can help your clients if they're buying. But equally, if, again, like you said, Michelle, having that element of control and authority and the experience to be able to push back on a buyer and say, well, actually, it's irrelevant to the price. If you want to get an electric report done, then that's on you. Or even just pushing back and saying, no, it's not, it's not a new property. You're buying a grade 2 listed home. If you want to change the electrics when you buy it, you crack on. But you bought the grade 2 listed home knowing what the home was.
I'm going to pick up something there that Michelle can follow on from. So as part of our marketing plan, as I think we mentioned before, we tell the buyer before we send a memo that we're not going to renegotiate after survey. So it's built into our marketing plan. We send them an email at the start before we send the memo to say your offer's been agreed. Please confirm you understand, as per our telephone conversation, that we're not going to renegotiate after survey or mortgage valuation. Now, it isn't a perfect science and it's not a legally binding contract, but most buyers agree to it, because they're savvy and they understand that a surveyor's job is to list everything that's wrong with the house, and that a mortgage valuation half the time isn't worth the paper it's written on because the lender's just protecting their risk. So a lot of buyers at the level we sell at understand that. But B, it just sets the tone for the relationship, how you're going to move forward. And then when in 5 weeks' time they get the survey back and it's Michelle who's had a conversation with him, Michelle will quite often send a message to me or Phil and she'll say, just checking, at the start of the sale, have you got the email? Did they say that they confirmed there's no renegotiation? And of course, every now and then, sometimes there's a negotiation, but 9 times out of 10, there isn't, Michelle, is there?
No, there isn't. There isn't. I mean, it is very rare. And, we do push back, constantly push back. And we'll always look at ways to minimise kind of any exposure to the client in what way that we can. So yeah, surveys.
And that's what you're getting for your 2%. When you're paying a higher fee to a more experienced agent, and it's difficult to articulate that because you try and say that in the living room or the dining room, wherever it is you're sat, you're talking to potential clients, and articulating that. Again, we haven't mentioned him yet, so apologies, Simon. It's 57 minutes. Gates's stats that he produces for us, and in terms of like our exchange rate and our sale rate, and our exchange rate is something that we articulate in the living room. In our area, it's quite poor. The average is less than 50%. If you come to market in MK40 to MK46 inclusive, you're less than 50% likely to exchange if you come to market. Whereas with our stats, at 88.12%.
Yeah,
so
brilliant. I mean,
do you want to flip a coin, or do you want a nearly 90% chance of actually moving house?
Yeah, those stats are key. I agree. I think with the pushing back thing on surveys, you can also use what you mentioned, James, which is the weakness of other estate agents. So unless you're selling the house above, the weakness of other estate agents to renegotiate on behalf of their clients. The potential there is absolutely enormous to be able to do that because they're not very good at it generally.
No.
And they've got so much on because they charge lower fees. They're happy to do a quick reneg, which might be $8,000, but that's $8,000 tax free out of their clients' pockets, which is a huge amount of money out of the context of a sale. So,
they save 1% though using the other agent, so it's not all lost. Lol.
I think what's quite clear about this, there's been loads of great tips, but one thing that is really, really clear, and it's something we all do, there's just one person dealing with sales progression. It's so important. I know, JK, you and I have got a slightly different setup where, Sandra, Pauline and Kate do get involved in the day-to-day running of the agency as well with certain things like viewings and taking offers and etc. But I think ultimately, one person dealing with it from start to finish is key, and having that experience. I think they need to wear so many different hats during the process as well. We've talked about being empathetic but firm, things like that, going the extra mile. Understanding the process is so important. But one person for sales progression, because it's frightening the amount of people that don't actually do it. I bought a house about 18 months ago now when I moved, and to this day, I have still not heard off the agent that sold it to me, and I went and collected the keys directly from the buyer. I had to chase them to do all the financial due diligence and give them my IDs. And once that had been done, I literally did not hear a thing over that 10, 12-week period from them, not once.
No,
It was
all
me
in.
and the buyer ended up doing it directly.
I think it's important just to say here, so just for those people who are listening, those agents who are listening, and if they're thinking about how to structure their self-progression, because I know we've got a lot of people listening to the pod, a lot of people who are experienced, but a lot who aren't, and they're sort of getting going in the industry. And I just wanted to sort of explain how we're going to do it. So obviously, really, I got lucky with Michelle because I know Michelle personally, and she's really good. To get an outsourced sales progressor like that is going to be very, very difficult for you to do. So having it in-house is what we're going to do, and I know it's what you two do already. And what you were saying there, Dave, about it being one person, definitely one person only dealing with one particular sale all the way through. The person who we employ is going to be doing office-based stuff as well, because we have about 30 sales in the pipeline at any one time, so between 25 and 35. So that's not enough for a full-time job. I mean, Michelle will shoot me down. Some weeks it is, but every week you can't guarantee that someone's going to have a full-time role throughout the week, because obviously some sales are easier than others. So we're going to have someone that they will do, emails, calls, booking viewings as well as sales progression, but they will just be the only person in stories that does the sales progression. So we've got a boardroom at one of our offices, and the new person that starts in the role will know that they can go and sit in the boardroom for 2 or 3 hours if they want, and they've got their own space to be able to do sales progression. Being sat in the office, permanently doing it, for me, I think you need a bit of breakaway space to go and sort a few problem ones out. Michelle, what do you think?
Absolutely. And I just wanted to add another layer to this whole discussion, because as business owners and people who manage sales progressors, you really need to think about what they need to be successful, because it can be a really challenging role and it can end up being quite negative in some ways. So, if you've had a really, really tricky conversation, tricky customer, you have to really work hard as an individual to manage your state, because, energy flows where attention goes. So if you've got somebody in the office who is really having a tough time, what can you do as a business owner, as a leader, as a manager, to support that person to make sure that firstly, they're okay and they're managing to, operate optimally, but the impact that might have on the rest of the team, who is high energy, who is dealing with sales, who's booking things, it's numbers, it's, fast. So how do you kind of work that within your office to make a culture that fits both things? And I think that's a really interesting point to make sure that everyone can work optimally.
I think it's a good place to cap it off now. I think we're an hour and 2 minutes in. We thought sales progression was going to be quite a quick pod, didn't we? But I think there's been loads of value, like in this, loads of tips, all the way from management packs, relationship building. Like there's definitely stuff that people can take away and implement from this. And I think it's been a really, really good and value packed episode. And thank you so much to Michelle for joining us and adding all the value.
You're
absolutely.
welcome.
Thanks so much, Michelle.
Thanks, guys.
Well, I think that's it for this week. Anything else to add?
Can I say something, please, James?
No.
I just publicly, first of all, want to thank Michelle. Michelle, I know we get on well because we're mates, but thank you very much for everything you've done for stories, because I'm sure the whole team would want to say that, because you've really been instrumental, and I'm glad you're going to be hanging around and doing some coaching with us moving forward. So thank you to you personally. I know you're a busy lady with kids and horses and all sorts of shit, and a husband.
Don't forget him.
He's right down the run.
He's below the horses and the dogs.
So thank you to you. You're a ledge. And then just a little sales pitch for the complete agent. Our membership is growing. We've got another 3 members have joined this week. I'm looking forward to our first mastermind in June in Birmingham. So if anyone's got any questions about that, please reach out. I hate that phrase. I wish I hadn't said it. Please get in touch.
Please reach out, man.
Book a discovery call.
And then keep your eyes peeled, because we've got some exciting stuff we're going to be doing with Michelle moving forward.
Yes.
I think we've also got a monthly check-in Zoom, haven't we, next week as well?
Oh, there you go.
Which will coincide with the new Not on the Market letter going out. So that's an exciting part of the month as well.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So as always, thank you for listening, tuning in, and don't forget to share it. Don't forget to rate us, and don't forget to join the private Facebook group, which will be in the show notes. It's been a pleasure, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you soon.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks very much. I'm off.